So it's a landscape. And in the middle of this barren space, there is this building.
Stuck on the side of a hill, so steep it looks more like a green wall, with a river running through it. The roof buckling under the weight of its own haphazard wooden shingles. Inside, a giant serrated blade catches the light.
And we work out what it is by what's next to it, which are these two massive piles of timber, freshly cut timber, it seems like, piled up outside this building. And this building seems to have deforested this entire landscape. It's a sawmill.
The sawmill is a real place, somewhere in southern Austria, in the province of Carinthia. And it is visited by a real person, the artist Egon Schiele, who is 25 years old in 1913 when he paints this landscape. A real place and a real paradox. How did a sawmill that can barely hold itself up cause all this devastation?
Anthropocene is this term that has emerged in the last 20 or so years to describe the idea that the era that we're in now in the Earth's history is one that's fundamentally characterized by human intervention. And that seems to be a very important context for this painting, because this painting depicts a human intervention in the landscape. It feels unnatural because Schiele has taken away so many of the fundamental aspects of what we expect from a landscape painting that make it a scene of nature. He's taken away perspective. He's taken away a sense of scale and space. And in the place of that, you have this human intervention, the sawmill, at the heart of it. And so it really seems like he is directly commenting on the human impact on nature via painting a composition that is so radically unlike the way that landscapes are conventionally presented. It's an almost apocalyptic image.
In 1913, there is something apocalyptic stirring in Central Europe, just beneath the surface, beneath the forests and lakes, the grand cities of Vienna and Budapest. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, one of the largest the world has ever seen, slowly collapsing under its own weight. The strange atmosphere of those eventful sunny August days, as the author H.G. Wells would later put it. Like a man still walking about the world, unaware that he has contracted a fatal disease, which will alter every routine and habit in his life.
And everybody just thinks this is going to go on forever, this empire. But really, there's nothing holding it up. It's like this sawmill that is churning out timber, but is itself falling apart.
This is the Object Podcast, produced by the Minneapolis Institute of Art. The Object is made possible by generous support from Ameriprise Financial, a proud supporter of the Minneapolis Institute of Art and committed to the future of art and culture in the communities they serve. Ameriprise Financial, helping people feel confident about their financial future since 1894. Now, our next live taping of the podcast will be Thursday, October 30, the day before Halloween at 7 p.m., marking the 100th anniversary of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, with special guests, fun quizzes, and of course storytelling, all about F. Scott and love and war, the fast times, slow gin, art and culture of the Jazz Age. Costumes encouraged, not required. Watch for ticket details coming soon. Today, a story about nature and humans, and the nature of humans. Talking with Max Bryant, the curator of European art, who assembled the Timber Show, but art and woodwork at the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I'm Tim Gihring. Egon Schiele did not paint the scream that iconic painting of a person holding their face in horror and bellowing, that would be Edvard Munch. But Schiele did paint Self-Portrait Screaming the very same year in 1910. A picture in which Schiele is standing with his shirt open and his mouth open, screaming. In the early 1900s, Schiele is kind of an intense guy who may well spend a lot of time screaming.
He's started out as this amazing prodigy, this brilliant draftsman, and he's gone to the art school in Vienna and quit still as a teenager with a group of others and then set up their own more idealistic kind of artist group.
Schiele moves out of Vienna, settles in his mother's hometown. But he doesn't stay long. He's kicked out for, as Max puts it, being too much of a bohemian. Then he's arrested. Imprisoned for corrupting the youth, supposedly, with his intense new drawings. One of them is burned in the courtroom. He spends 24 days in jail. And then a year later, in 1913, he starts to turn things around.
He's got himself set up in Vienna with a studio. He's got supporters, and he's really making a serious go of presenting his work, producing a lot of paintings, and also exhibiting them, getting them seen outside of Austria. And one part of that is these landscapes that he does.
Now, let's jump back for a moment to introduce Josef Hoffman, older than Schiele, from way outside the center of the empire, a place now in the Czech Republic. He becomes an architect and a designer devoted to all things modern, making modern things for a modern society. And yet he is also still devoted to the local traditions of his homeland, especially woodworking, log houses, wood furniture. And so when he opens his famous workshop, the Wiener Werkstatt in Vienna, in the early 1900s, wood is a big part of that. Hoffman is designing entire buildings, especially the interiors. The Germans have a word for that, Gesamtkunstwerk.
The term means total work of art. And it's originally, I think, in the context of opera, like Wagner's operas are Gesamtkunstwerks because he would create the whole. It would be music, it would be story, it would be costumes and lighting and theatre, and it was like the idea that opera was this sort of ultimate art form. But it's also a description for the architecture of this time, which isn't just about, designing the building and the layout and the plan and the elevation. It's about furnishing it as well.
Chairs, plates, everything, right down to the silverware. People love Hoffman's Gesamtkunstwerk. The Wiener Werkstatt is doing really well. But there is something missing. And that's where Schiele comes in. Now, Schiele has an interesting relationship with nature, an almost spiritual relationship, in the old romantic way of artists being especially attuned to the world around them.
And so he really identifies himself as part of his personal brand, is that he is this guy who is really has an intuitive relationship with the natural world, I think very sincerely. And one aspect of that is this sort of empathy with plants and trees.
Schiele is really drawn to these so-called forest shrines that people built in the forests around Vienna to honor the saints, a kind of folk tradition that Schiele admires and paints as a simple expression of faith, really. And at some point he writes to Hoffman and explains these beliefs.
He says, "I can speak with all living creatures, even with plants and stones. Speak directly into their face, into their essence. Every tree has its face. I recognize its kinds of eyes, its kinds of arms, its components, its organism. I want to be addressed by everything.
Now, Hoffman doesn't really have time for this kind of mysticism. He's trying to run a business. And he also doesn't really go in for, self-expression.
He doesn't have the space to be expressing, great, poetic visions in the same way. He's very restrained. He never really reveals ever what kind of his goals are. I think he's a very sort of famously restrained personality. I think it's interesting that Schiele chooses to tell him about all of these kind of ideas about talking to trees that he's expressing, that I think a lot of people would be like, what is this crazy guy talking about?
There is, of course, something Hoffman likes about this guy. His art. Schiele is making these landscapes now, after he gets out of jail. And Hoffman starts acquiring them for the Wiener Werkstatt.
Schiele's work is very useful for Hoffman as the cutting edge of what's going on artistically. Hoffman's running a business, and part of that is being in tune with the new thing. You can't be stuck in your old way of doing things. You've got to keep your finger on the pulse.
Yes, these are landscapes, but Schiele landscapes. Not exactly traditional, sedate. In fact, like all his work, they're practically buzzing with life. And Hoffman is not only sympathetic to these images of the countryside, where he's always had this vestigial attachment, really, to life beyond the city, beyond the modern. He's also smart enough to see what effect this art has on his Gesamtkunstwerk. Now, let's back up a bit. Hoffman, at this time, has taken on a kind of rectilinear, grid-like style, right angles with the occasional oval or sphere thrown in, which sounds spare, repetitive, but there is something emotional in it, a different kind of yearning.
Somebody who they're all reading and thinking about is Nietzsche, and the idea of eternal return is this idea that is appearing in Also sprach Zarathustra, and Mahler sets one of these texts, the poem, the Midnight Song to Eternity, that is all about woe, despair is on the side of death and destruction, but joy is about endlessness. And the idea that you will be doing all these things over and over again for eternity, potentially, is the way you should be living your life. We would be here endlessly podcasting. And I think, in a way, you see a bit of that in these kinds of grids and spheres of Hoffman's work, this desire for these forms that are potentially eternal.
So here's Hoffman with his clean, repetitive lines, suggesting this kind of purity emerging from the chaos of life. And then there's Schiele, who loves the chaos for the chaos, who's fascinated by gnarly trees and gnarly bodies, decay and collapse.
It's like they're opposites, but when you think about the ensemble of these buildings or these interiors at the time, you can see how perfectly they complement each other. Because you have your immaculate interior designed by Josef Hoffman, and then you have your Schiele painting over the mantelpiece or wherever. And, this painting is of some, emaciated nude, or it's of a falling down house or something like that. And it just makes everything around it look even more immaculate because it's just that perfect, contrast, right?
We should talk about this other guy who's come to Vienna in the mid-1800s, Michael Thonet, a furniture maker who has figured out something about wood, how to bend it, essentially, to your will. People have been wanting to do this, forever, and almost always failed. So when people hear that this Thonet guy can do it, He's invited to Vienna by a prince.
It's an amazing process when you watch it, because these pieces of furniture look very sleek and elegant and effortless. But what's behind it is a huge amount of industrial machinery. You have these long pieces of wood that are all together in a sort of furnace being cooked up to the right temperature, and then they're taken out, and they're sort of bendy, and they're put into this metal harness and bent with these clamps. And it's almost kind of a very violent thing to see in a way, because this little piece of wood is just covered in these clamps and metal straps, and eventually it cools and turns into this curved piece of furniture.
Thonet not only can do it, he creates a whole industry around it, which is exactly what the prince was hoping. He takes off with something he calls chair number 14, also known as the Vienna Coffee House chair. Maybe it's the perfect chair, maybe not. But it is the right chair at the right time, in the right place. When cafes are popping up around Vienna and really all of Europe, and all of them need chairs.
Cafe culture in Vienna was this sort of analog to the clubs of London. It was like the place you go, you have your coterie in your circle, and everybody had their cafe that they would go to and talk to people and read the newspaper and be in touch with what was going on around Europe.
Hoffman has his cafe down the road from the Werkstatt. Schiele has a different cafe where the cool kids hang out, the Cafe Museum. But they all have more or less the same chair, even if a lot of different designers start making them, including Hoffman. The bent wood suggesting something unique about this cafe culture.
The lightness of them, they really embody a sort of, flexibility, and you're ready to change, ready for the new thing, ready for the news to come in. They are not classical.
Which brings us back, in a way, to where we started. The sawmill in the hills of southern Austria, wood piling up beside it, the hillside deforested. Because it takes a lot of wood to make all this furniture. Everyone is sitting in these chairs, in these cafes, talking about the future, even as the present is collapsing. There is another painting by Schiele in Max's Timber Show of a wooden bridge, which was also a real place, somewhere between Vienna and Budapest, the two great cities of the empire. And so, between these two paintings, of the sawmill out in the countryside, in the bridge between these cities, you have one of the main points of tension pulling apart the empire. These far-flung provinces being stripped of their wealth and agitating for autonomy, and the cities where the wealth is flowing in, even as the empire is trying to expand even further. As if Schiele has a sense, while everyone else seems oblivious, that this tension is about to give. In June 1914, a year after Schiele makes his sawmill painting, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand is assassinated, the heir to the throne, right? By the end of summer, Austria has declared war on the Balkans, Germany moves against France, and suddenly the world is at war. In the first few months of the war, Austria-Hungary suffers more than 3.5 million casualties. In early 1915, Schiele gets married, and 3 days later he reports for basic training. Over the next few years, as the war drags on, he appears to change dramatically, still drawing and painting, even as he digs trenches and guards prisoners and works in a military supply depot in Vienna. His figures are fuller, his line more steady. By 1918, with the war winding down, Schiele's wife Edith becomes pregnant with their first child. and Schiele virtually sells out an exhibition, emerging as the leading living artist in Austria. Hoffman, on the other hand.
Hoffman lives on, but it's kind of a sad story because he's just like not at the center of the modern anymore. And his career he sort of becomes less relevant.
The money isn't there after the war. The clientele for the Gesamtkunstwerk is vague, gone. But already during the war, the notion of an eternal style, like so many assumptions, had begun to crumble.
How far can you push these grids and these spheres and this purity?
By 1918, the magic is gone. The innocence is gone. The purity is gone. Max remembers a visit to the Neue Gallery in New York, which specializes in the art and design of Austria and Germany at the turn of the century, when they did a show of the entire history of the Wiener Werkstatt.
And the stuff at the beginning is just perfect. In terms of good taste, it's just I was going around with my wife and I was just yes, I would have that, I would have that, I would have that. I would just one of each, please. But then the later stuff, it's just
Well, in the fall of 1918, everything changes for Schiele too, again. On October 27, Schiele sketches his still pregnant wife lying feverish in bed. By the next day, she's dead. 3 days later, Schiele is dead too, at 28. 5 days after that, the empire itself comes to an end. A few years after Schiele's death, 10 years after the start of the war, a book comes out by this friend of Schiele, the artist and writer who goes by Albert Paris von Gütersloh. Schiele had painted an incredible portrait of him, also in the show. And now Gütersloh writes this retelling of the Cain and Abel story from the Bible at the beginning of the world, right? Cain and Abel being the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Abel seems a lot like Schiele, young, pantheistic, seeing God in nature. And Abel finds out that that's exactly how the world began. God among us, living in harmony with his creation in the Garden of Eden, his paradise on earth before the fall. Abel learns this from God himself in a revelation, and he's so inspired he builds this shrine in the forest, like the ones that Schiele was so obsessed with. Naturally, he tells his brother Cain, "Hey, it didn't used to be like this. We used to be one with God and nature. We used to be in Eden."
Cain is so horrified by this idea that they've been exiled from paradise, which Adam and Eve haven't told them, that he murders him. And that really kind of, I think, is a great encapsulation of how someone was sort of thinking about what Schiele was doing in these pre-war years and kind of connecting that to a larger sense of exile.
Adam refuses to punish Cain. And that's how the story ends. Adam, the first human in the world, covering up the fact that man had once lived in Eden, in perfect harmony with God and nature. Better, he thinks, that no one else know the truth.
Gesamtkunstwerk? Yeah, it's a useful word. You can use it, you can just throw it around all the time.
This has been the Object Podcast, made possible with the generous support of Ameriprise Financial. Mark it down, the next live taping of The Object is October 30, 7 p.m. at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. More details on guests and tickets coming soon. I'm Tim Gihring.
I think, it applies to so many things.